Welcome to Wake Up Epic. This is a very special experience. We're going to be looking at transmutation. What is transmutation? And specifically, what's the transmutation of oppression? How do we do that with ourselves, and how are we showing up with that? It's a hexagram number 47, gene key 47, human design gate 47. But before we go into it, I want to acknowledge one thing and invite you into a big perspective for today. This is the last of 64 hexagrams in a one-year cycle. So I want to invite you to consider the last year of your life. Take the perspective that today is a culmination of something of over the last year or so of your life, and could potentially be a way to look at the next year of your life. So with whatever you're bringing to this practice today to transmute for yourself and the things that you're doing, let's take a year frame from 1 year ago and a year frame 1 year hence to create the space in which you're taking into account your life, your expression, and your creativity. So the 47 has an embodied story that starts in channel. Channel is forward, up, and narrow with our body. So come forward into the space together. Come up, a bit more active, more interested, and come narrow to have more focus rather than more variation. So channel is an act contribution, generally has a sense of purpose and a sense of desire. I like to often think about at the dinner table, someone says, "Would you pass me the salt?" And unless you're really angry at them, usually there's some sense of, sure, here you go. There's a delight, there's a desire, there's a contribution, we're making an impact, we're in the space with the other person. There's actually a lot going on to pass the salt. But try channel a couple times. So where in the last year, where in the next year is this ability to mesh your desire, your contribution, your impact, drop your guard, drop your resistance and any insecurity, and just make a difference. This is the top of the 47th hexagram, so it's also the context. So imagine for just another moment, a world of pure contribution, a world of purposeful desire and impact. And in that world, we're going to drop into the bottom of the hexagram, which is pillar. We shift back, we stay tall, we come narrow. Pillar is a sense of, I, in my own awareness, can. Pillar is that moment when you just know what you want to eat off the menu. So in the context of the last year and the next year, acknowledge your capacity with your own intuitive knowing of what you could do and what you did. With the next year, feel into what is it you'd really like to do? What would make the next year incredible? Which of course is a very big question. Then to fulfill this embodied story of the 47, I, in this choosing to pillar, choosing to be self-aware of our creative expression, bring it into that channel. From I can to I will. And bring a little bit of that I will or we are back into what do I want? A lot of potential here. In a world of infinite possibility, what do you choose? I'd like to bring your attention to the narrowness of both of these positions. They're both narrow. Now, what does that mean? It means we're not getting distracted. We're not losing our focus. So while you might have one really big goal with a lot of details, imagine being extremely committed and dedicated to that one thing. What is the one thing over the next year that has I can and I will, and I'll contribute? And in this is a sense of the good, the true, the beautiful of what you can do. And the good, the true, and the beautiful of expressing that, creating that, sharing it. And the recognition, having done that, letting that amplify your confidence. To make it a little silly, would you pass the salt? Yeah, here you go. And then, aren't I a good person for having done that? So we get the whole cycle. And thank you for passing the salt. You're welcome. And now we have more tribe, more connection. So finally, let's look at the shadow and the gift here. What is oppression? Oppression is going to be some issue with pillar and some issue with channel. So try not pillaring, collapsing, being distracted. Imagine that. I can't come up and strong. And then someone asks for something. You see a need in the world and you can't, but you have to try and make a difference. And so when someone says, oh, I'm really trying, I just can't. Because both pillar and channel are active, they're both up. Imagine you can't. You don't have the leg strength. You don't have the integrity in the spine to be upright with either of these. And because we're moving forward with pillar and back with, forward with channel to contribute and back to sense our own knowing, imagine you can't do that either. And the last piece is, it could also be, I have to. So try, I have to know, and I have to make a difference. So between the can't and the I have to, take another few moments to find what's your familiarity with feeling oppressed. How does that show up for you? And once you've done that a few times, let it smooth out. You do the same pattern, but with more and more awareness and compassion. So then what is transmutation? Yesterday, I had a conversation with a woman who's a PhD student of creativity. She made the distinction between expression and creating. So I want to acknowledge her. And if I can find her link, I'll put her link in the comments with the with this video. And her point was that when we're creating, we're a little more biased towards creating for someone. When we're expressing, we're more biased towards just expressing for the sake of it, for the self-awareness of it. I found that very, very helpful. So what if transmutation, because we've got the pillar of this is what wants to be expressed through me. And we can take pillar and then we can express this on the wall with paint or in words. So we can do this purely to express ourselves through me, within me, and into the world. And if we're doing that, we're transmuting something within and we're bringing it into some sort of form and shape. We're doing it with some sort of discipline. Even if we think it's zero discipline, there's some discipline just in doing anything. And we could apply this to creating. So look at each other look at the other people in the group besides yourself. Or if you're doing this later, just watch the whole group. And imagine you're bringing something to the table for them. It's still your idea. It's still an expression of you, but it's really about them. So whether we're creating or expressing, we're always transmuting something from within, coming through into form, something about the form being received back within. The last piece of information I'll drop in is from the human design perspective. And it says for the 47th gate, it's about realizing energy. It's about pulling abstract pieces into a whole. So that moment when you have an aha moment, pillar is very aha. But hopefully we go beyond just aha to aha, and I tell somebody about it or I do something with it. And so something about the 47 is about bringing a piece into its wholeness. So here we are as one collective whole. We each bring a piece to contribute to a whole. And so we can take the perspective that we're a whole in the whole previous year and next year as a whole. And this piece that we're bringing in to that story. So having laid all this down, we'll do 5 rounds of pure practice. Working with just the structure of the movement, you work with the flow of the movement, and one statement that purely expresses the synthesis of pillar and channel. Here we go. So flow between the movements as you like, take your time. You can't do it wrong. Let the movement move you. The first activation statement is I can trust that my truth and goals can benefit others. I can trust that pursuing my own truth and goals can benefit others. The second activation, I can appreciate The value of following my passions. So I can appreciate my passions and the value of following them. Allow your body to keep relaxing into the flow of these movements. Any effort, keep letting that go. For our third activation statement, I can stay true to my values and do things in service of others. I can be true to my values and do things to serve others. Where would that be helpful in the next year of your life, in your creativity? Our fourth activation for today, even when things are difficult, I can trust in myself. Even when things are difficult, I can trust in myself. For our final round, no activation statement, but hold both. One arm in channel, one arm in pillar. So you're holding both and being the bridge between the two. And to essentialize the energy here, the transmutation of oppression. So just be the transmutation of oppression and see what shows up. Take the next few breaths to notice your way out of that practice. When we step out of the movement, it's a big reminder that we can always practice things and repattern and uncondition ourselves, and then come back to our life having been changed. And we don't have to hold on to it. We change, just like we don't have to hold on to the push-ups or the run we did yesterday. It's having its effect on our bodies and our minds. So after doing the practice, our final and our sixth moment together is the leadership moment. It's the role model moment. So this is a chance to journal, to capture any insights that are on the surface, and to speak them. And we'll do that now. Any stories or notice scenes or anything else that really wants to be said. And if you're watching this later, now's the time to go to do a little bit of mirror talking, or speaking to yourself in the mirror, or journaling, or writing, or any kind of creating. So what are we noticing?
Well, the thing that seems very clear in this practice is how transition between these two components, how critical it is that there is a connection between, okay, this is what I'm choosing, and now I'm delivering it outward to a destination. And for me, I think there had been a significant disconnect between the two modes, and it's quite a journey to make that transition full, so that in that entire process there are no gaps. Because and yet I guess one of my patterns, I think, had been is like, okay, if I have to find what is mine to create, I have to disconnect from the world out there. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. So it's a very, very interesting how this particular practice makes it so explicit. And then another thing that kept coming to me is more from historical awareness. I currently live in California, gold country. And when you think about the gold rush, you think about those poor dudes panning for gold, right? Filling a pan with water and washing it off. Guess what? They did that maybe for just the first year, maybe two. Then they got resourceful. And what they started doing, which they were a little bit too effective at it, they were creating these powerful channels, these long pipes through which they channeled water at high pressure and washed off entire hillsides. Like, they were too effective in this channeling thing. So much that they washed down like hundreds of cubic feet of topsoil all down into the valleys, and the farmers downstream were outraged and got the practice outlawed within a couple of decades, because the channeling was too much. Again, the entire hillsides were washed off, and all the topsoil and all the destruction. So that image kept coming to me as I was doing channel, because we just went hiking to one of these sites. Like, and now that I've been sensitized to this, anywhere I go, I see the environmental destruction. I see these cliffs and ravines, and I'm like, oh, I bet that's not natural. I bet that was created by these powerful channels, and these contraptions are still standing in lots of places around town, so you can totally see how that was done.
Thank you. That's a really powerful metaphor. And for me, it bookends, from a commitment to the creative process, mining for gold, but in a really challenging, dirty, exhausting way. And then in another way that can burn out my system, or impact relationships, like how many people are workaholics and ruin their marriages, and or they're artists who burn out. And so there's a great spectrum with the gold. I've never heard that before. Thank you. Marion, want to share anything? You're still on mute.
I was noticing the that sense of presence in pillar, from the sense of presence going into channel, and the when you asked us to sort of feel into our sort of negative pattern, or our collapsed pattern. Mine is I have to, and I have the courage and I can do it, but I have to, which means that I'm not with myself as I'm doing the thing that I have to do. And this practice was letting me really feel into being present in that thing that I'm choosing to do, and that I'm fully there for that. And then bringing that sense of my presence there also increases my sense of presence and potency in my own inner experience. And so that was a kind of virtuous cycle, as opposed to the collapse, which is one of separation for me. And then I was also thinking about desire, that my tendency is to have service as a gift, as something that I'm giving. And I was sort of feeling into the pleasure and the the desire and savor, and how that also needs courage and presence to really flower. And that I'm interested in my own pattern of being ready to serve others, but let me also taste what it is I'm serving. So that's my story.
Thank you. It sounds very like it's adding some joy and delight to the process. The two things that are most on my mind after this is one is the sense of being guarded or unguarded with self-expression, and how in a number of different conversations, some with coaching colleagues who are, let's say, facilitating me, and another more sales colleagues, and we're working on sales. And this interesting thing, like there's one coach in particular who I'm thinking of, who's great at what she does, but doesn't often create a place of consent where it's okay to really drop the guard. So even though we're here to do some inner work, can't drop that guard. And I can feel that my guard is up, with my wife, or with family, or with creativity. So that sense of my guard is up, despite wanting it to be down. And then in a sales conversation where we're actively not trying to change anybody or facilitate anybody, but allow them to make a deeper commitment. And so the whole frame is the context of safety, to get clarity on what you're really committed to, and how the whole thing is, how do we safely drop guards and create a sense of we're in this together. So just noticing that right now. And then with the salt, what's coming to mind is, I don't know of any salt brands. I can't think of one that's impacted my life that's memorable, but I can think of two specific restaurants that have stayed with me for years. So somebody in that restaurant or in that brand said, I'm going to create enough of an experience with enough of the ingredients, with enough of the whole process, that this is a whole unto itself. And of course, salt is too, but it's like one ingredient. And a restaurant is many ingredients, many moving parts. And then a person is even more of that. So like, how memorable is a person and the impact a person makes on their life? Such a more sophisticated whole, in contrast with a restaurant, in contrast with a salt brand. So just noticing the commitment, the level of expression of, here I am, this taco place, And this is what we are. This is what we do. With this sense of, we're here to serve you, and this is this unique expression. So parts and wholes, I'm just noticing that today, and how the more parts there are in the whole, perhaps, as a theory here, the more it can change for others, and the more change is involved. All right. Yeah, Marian.
You were going to put a link into the expression versus whatever that word was that I can't remember.
Well, the person who, yeah, I'll name her now because I want to get her last name in here. But I'll put her Twitter link in there. She doesn't have anything written on this yet, but we were having a conversation. Shauna Pote. She's an executive coach and an organizational creativity catalyst. SHANAPOTE. And I'll put her Twitter link under there, but Shauna Pote. Really cool creative. All right, so this concludes our 47th hexagram for transmutation and being an alchemist. So remember, work with the patterns. Now that you've landed it, you're going to open up to a lot of synchronicity and what you uniquely need to learn about this as a way of being and a way that it impacts you. But if you can bring this as a practice into the next few days, I guarantee you will get a lot of insights each time you play with it. So thank you very much for waking up, Epic, and I'll see you soon.